we've got a choice here. This is a stage in the Falcon build where we're putting the seating in. The bunk bed's in place. See, I can show you the detail quite close up. The bunk is in place, the seating is in. We've done a little dry brushing on the back there to bring up the dials a bit more. And on the other side of the floor, we've dirtied up the floor a little bit, so we've got the tiles are standing out a little bit better now, and you can see the grates a bit better. Might put a bit more on later, not too sure yet. We've got the technical control area where you see Han Solo sitting in the first film, in A New Hope. Han sitting there, the droids are there with Chewbacca playing chess, and of course you got Ben and Luke out here. Luke's getting his first lightsaber lesson. Now these are the parts. Let's put them against a dark background so you can see. Now the back of the cushions are hollow, and it does warn you about this in the issue. Now as you can see from here, the cushions are on from right to left. But as soon as we get to this point, the next one is going to sit out, and from the back you'll see that big awful gap. So what I'm going to do is, as the issue here suggests, is fill these gaps with model filler, putty basically, sand them smooth and then give them a little bit of a paint afterwards, and then that way around that corner, if you look at it from that angle, you won't see the horrible gaps that you can see there. So there's two large cushions to do, and two small ones, and that's for those last 4 slots on the seat. So I'll make a start on that and give you an update later. Okay, that's the back of our seat cushions now. They're all filled. That great big cavernous hole has been filled and they're smoothed off, so we can fit those now, and the back will look a little bit neater, and all we can do is just pop a little bit of paint on there, just to have something on the back of the seats, and that'll be it. So you'll see that soon. Okay, here's a little update on the Falcon. These are the parts that came with issue 8. They're now all pretty much in place. Some glued, some not. We've built the rest of the seat, and I haven't painted the back of it yet, but I've smoothed off where those gaps were that I showed you earlier. Needs a little bit more tidying. The technical station's in. You see the dry brushing I've done just to bring up the silver detail, the highlights, just to give it a little bit of depth. I think the rest of the control console needs a bit of paint. Actually, it looks a bit plasticky. We've got a couple of pieces of wall in place, which is quite interesting because you can start to see the curve of the top surface of the Falcon. That's going to be roughly there underneath the Falcon, obviously. Sorry, underneath the surface rather. So it gives you an idea how everything's going to go. But that's the parts from issue 8 all in place. Need to get a bit more definition on those floor tiles and the grate, I think, as well. Doing a little wash on that later. But that's it for issue 8. Here's a little update on a couple of models that I'm working on at the moment. A lot of you will remember the Borg Cube, as seen in earlier videos. Well, this is the little escape module, which is going to be sort of coming out of the tunnel at the top corner, and basically I've just got a piece of coat hanger, actually a black rod, which is going to go into the surface of the model of the cube itself, and then this, once I've finished painting it and doing a bit of a wash to get some highlights on it, get a bit of depth on it, that'll be ejecting out of the escape tunnel. Another model I'm building is a good old B9 robot from Lost in Space. I've just made a quick start. I'm just painting some of the individual parts. The top half will rotate. It's not fixed in very well yet, but it's just coming together. It's just a little bit of primer, a little bit of a top coat, trying to get rid of the seams in the side. Don't think I'm going to light this one. There's a bigger version that you can get which I might light up. That would probably be more interesting. This is just a little fun, easy build. So, and then I'll show you actually where this is going to go in a moment. That gives you an idea where the smaller Borg vessel is going to go. It's basically going to look as though it's coming out of the tube there. It needs painting like the rest of it, but that's the idea. So it's on a little black rod, so from a distance you can't really see how it's suspended. That gives you an idea anyway. Hi there, I just wanted to share this with you guys. After building the Viper that I built for a customer recently, and the other Vipers I built last year, I thought, it'd be nice to do a Cylon Raider, the old one. I've done the new one, but the old one. So I ordered this in off of eBay. Nothing remarkable about that, until I actually opened the thing. The one I had when I was a kid years ago, back in the 70s, 80s, the Cylon Raider wasn't that much bigger, as I remember, than the Viper. But of course, I'm realising now that that must have been a completely different scale, because the Raider is a 3-man vehicle, whereas the Viper is a 1-man. The reason I'm doing the video is because I got a genuine surprise, and anyone else who's thinking of buying one of these, you might find this interesting. It looks quite normal from the top, or from the top of the box, the front of the box, until you do that and you realise, hang on, that's a really, really deep box. So anyway, the reason for all the surprise, I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand, I'm going to open it up and I'll be back in a second. Okay, the reason for the surprise is that's the instructions, which is an A4 sheet of paper. Okay, so I'm going to put that to one side. Instead of seeing the whole top half, that's only a small piece of it. I was putting this together earlier on, so that's effectively only the centre part of the body. So compared to an A4 sheet of paper, and then by the time you put the wings on the end of that, let's give you an idea. This thing's enormous. Compared to an A4 sheet of paper, that is a really, really big model. It's going to be easy to light up because there's so much room inside. In fact, the 2 holes in each engine are perfect for a couple of really bright LEDs each. There's plenty of room to put the headlights in up front. And the size of the cockpit, again, that gives you an idea on the size of this thing. It's at least, I reckon, it's got to be twice the size of the one that I built as a kid. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but it's a big model, this. Very big. The biggest problem I see with it is, I'll just try and open it up, sorry, one hand, never easy. The problem I see is the fact that the plastic, although it's nicely made, detail's good, don't see any flash anywhere on it, but what I have noticed is it's so thin, it's virtually transparent, so it's going to need an awful lot of light blocking for those engines and whatever else you might want to do in this thing. But apart from that, it was a nice surprise. The size just really gave me a bit of a surprise, a bit of a shock actually. So there you go. So if you're thinking of getting this kit, it's big. Excuse me. Even the stand. Look at the size of the stand on it. Makes the Viper look quite small by comparison, which I suppose it would be. And because this is the 30th year, 35th year, you get a bit of Ralph McQuarrie's original artwork as well, as you do with the Viper. So there we go. So that's the old 80s version of Battlestar Galactica, the Cylon Raider. Much bigger than I remember it. Normally when you're older you remember things back when you're a kid and they seem smaller than you remember, but this is much bigger than I ever remember it, so I'm thinking it must be a different scale. I can't remember what the one was in the 80s, but yeah, cool kit by the look of it. Anyway, I'll start building it soon. Hey everyone, it's Thursday and it's new edition time, so we've now got issue number 9. I think we've got bits of battery box in here, looks like there's some wiring, some more hull plating. So yeah, I think that's what we've got this time, and a little sneak preview of what we're going to get next week. So I'll unpack it all and see what we've got to do. Right, battery box time. Time we can test some of the electrics at this point. So those are the LEDs. I was wrong earlier on. I said in an earlier video I thought this could be 9 volts. It's actually 6. So apologies. But I was just going from something a glimpse of a picture I'd seen somewhere, and it led me up the wrong garden path. Anyway, there we go. So it's 6 volt, and that's how it's going to work. So we've got 6 volt LEDs running at the back there, and you can see there the control surface back wall all lit up. If we turn it off, back on again, you get the idea. So let's try and get an idea what it's going to look like. With that in place, that gives you a rough idea. So looking in the windows, you can see quite a bit in there. Looks rather good. Okay, this edition, number 9, is actually fairly simple. There's a battery box which they get you to connect up, which I'm just lying inside at the moment, and you can see there the inside of the cockpit lit up. And so you get an idea of what's going on in there. And the rest of it really is just adding some of this detail to the top. It's very, very self-explanatory. A little bit fiddly, you need a bit of super glue and some tweezers. Not tweezers, pliers. Or tweezers. And what I'm doing is just using the cocktail stick, a little bit of super glue on a cocktail stick, just to put little drop of glue in the holes, and then adding the parts with some pliers afterwards. And that's pretty much it. They do give you another wall, which is this one in the middle here, although they don't mention anything to do with it, but it looks to me like it's all just going to fit together like that, and there's some screw holes and it's all going to pull together, sort of something like so. So it's just a bit more of the hold. The battery box, there's a bit more hull plating and metal framework there, which looks like it's going to be around the front end. And that's about it really, so not too much to do on this one. I'll add a few more parts and then show you what it's all going to look like. One interesting thing about this section of the build is something that needs modifying in my opinion, and you'll have seen me do this on other models I build. This is the cockpit lit up. Fair enough, looks good. It's a pity it's all white. They could do with some other colours in there, so I might see if I can do something. There should be some red and blue and green switches, that sort of stuff, but it's predominantly white unfortunately, but I might be able to do something about that. But the real issue is this. They give you 2 strips of light blocking material, and because of these sprues you have to cut a bit around them. And the problem is that once the LEDs are in place, something like that, if you turn it up you can actually see a light leak. You can see light coming through. I don't know if you can see that there. Really need to be in the darker place. You can just see there, just in front of my thumbnail, there's a little area where you can see light coming through the hole, and the same thing applies the other side as well. So that small piece of light blocking material leaves a light gap effectively around here. So what I'm going to do, what I'm surprised they didn't do is tell us to prime the inside of this, effectively paint the inside of this to do a bit of light blocking. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some tulip, which you'll have seen me use before on the other models, and I'm going to build up some paint around these notches to help with the light blocking, because they quite clearly, you can still see the light coming through the hole. A lot of the detail is attached now, by the way. You can see there's more detail on the top and on the bottom. We've got some of the hose work and the pipes and things which are now on the bottom there. So more detail is in place. But I'll go and get some tulip and I'll show you how I'm going to improve that light blocking. Okay, so this is the tulip that I mentioned. Basically I'm just going to build it up around these little notches where the cutouts are in the light blocking material, and try and do a better job of light blocking. Back in a mo. Okay, so I've used the tulip. You can see I've built it up around that post, both sides, and I've done the same on the other half of the passenger tube. So now when we get those bright lights inside, because that piece effectively sits right over the LEDs, so that should solve any more issues with the light blocking. What I might do actually is, depending on how the rest of this tube is going to come together, I think there's a cutaway piece on the tube which is going to allow us to see inside. So when I know what bits are visible and what bits are exposed, I'm going to probably blacken a bit further in here, maybe go up to the corner where this damage is, because I want to make that damage look a bit more realistic. That's terrible as it is. Maybe bring a little bit more light blocking back this way. So not sure yet. We'll see how that develops in the coming weeks. But that should vastly improve the light blocking. In fact, we can even test it. Very simple method. Go turn a light on, big powerful light, and hold it up. You can see where the light blocking, you can see where the light goes through elsewhere, but on that tube it's pretty much blocking it. I still think this wants a coat of primer on the inside. Look how much light gets through that. I think if you were to look at this model in the dark, you'd see light bleeding through where it shouldn't. So I'm pretty convinced I'm going to end up painting the inside of that tube. I'm going to prime it, maybe paint it black, depending on what additional bits and pieces there are to go in the model. Still on this lighting on the Falcon, I've been following the tips in this edition to use the tape to effectively block any light that's going to go through, because a lot of the hull of this, if you hold it up to the light, you can actually see light through it. And very much more so on the passenger tube. So what I've decided to do is, if we go to my little workshop, is I've painted a bit more on the inside, because there are a few little gaps and there's a few thinner parts. So what this should do, hopefully I can use this light to demonstrate, is where the lights are in that first inch or so. There's no light coming through. It comes through later, but there won't be any light there. You see, this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. This is light leaking through an unpainted hull of a model, which obviously is not good if you're going to light it. So, but you see there's no light coming through that last couple of inches, which is where the LED board is going to go. It actually sits in that little trench halfway down. So I've added some paint, thickened that up a little bit, and I'm just testing it against there. You see that last bit's quite impregnable. Light's not getting through that last few inches at all. I might, depending on the rest of the kit, I might even just, as I think I said earlier, just prime the inside of this completely, give it a layer of paint to help with light blocking, because there's nothing worse than a model. In fact, this is there's a prime example here, because this model is a fantastic model. It was made by a guy on the internet. I bought it off of eBay because I was curious to see other people's work, compare it with my own, and although it's a fantastic model, it lights up, it looks awesome, but just here and here, when the lights are on, because it lights the landing bays inside, so you can actually well, that one's grated off as it is in the series, but that one, if you look in, you can actually see there's a runway in there, and it all lights up, but it shows through, it glows in the dark through here, through what would be several feet of steel or whatever the futuristic equivalent would be. So that basically was built and then painted. It wasn't light blocked in the inside everywhere it needed to be. So that's what I'm trying to avoid with this. It's really important to, if you're going to be lighting a model, to make it so that the light only shines where you need it, and certainly doesn't shine through what is supposed to be solid metal, because it just wouldn't work like that. Anyway, that's about it for now. I think that's it for this week. There are some extra bits and pieces on there. I've put the extra detail on here, and there's a few little bits been added on here. That little pipe going up the outside, and there's quite a bit on the underside there. Pipe work and detail there. That's directly underneath. The only other thing I've really been working on, just for a bit of fun actually, unless anyone wants it, is the little B9 robot from Lost in Space. I had the kit sitting around, and it was a very quick build, so I just put him together. There is a much bigger version out there. I think it's Mobius, but I'm not sure. And that's bigger. That's probably about 2 or 3 times the size, so you can put electrics in there and make a real nice job of that. This is a wee bit small to do too much. You could light it, but it's not going to look too brilliant. Anyway, that's it for this week on the Falcon. There'll be more next week. Looks like we're getting some more bits of the hull next week, so hopefully it will start to take on a bit more shape. Bye for now. After doing some more light blocking on the inside of the passenger tube or tunnel on the Falcon, when I had the paint out, I decided to get the airbrush out and do a little bit of a better job of the damage there. Looks a bit shiny still, so I might have to do that again in matte, but just try to make it more like a blaster explosion than just a couple of little holes. So I've done that. Now, while I've been doing that, I've been looking at the other bits and pieces, and the new sections of hull we've got today, both the framework and the plating, are for the underside of the hull. That's roughly where it goes, but on the bottom. And you can tell if you're doing this because, I don't know if you can see, I'll try and get this to focus. That part number is BF10. And that part number is BP10. So that's basically that's for the framework. BF is framework and BP is plating. So whole framework and whole plating. Now, if you remember a few weeks ago when I did a video, I did this weathering just on the edges here, just to add a little bit of realism. See the little bits of streaks of dirt and rust that have sort of gone, sort of swept down the surface of the hull. Now, if this had been a top part of the hull, like so, I'd be weathering this now with the streaks going down in the same way, but this is the underside. So it's going to be like that. It's the underside of the hull, this one. So what that means is any weathering is going to, gravity is going to take it, because of the slope of the underside of the hull, how can I show you, get some light on it. It's going to start at the edge and go this way. So basically the weathering streaks go the opposite direction. So I'm going to put a few of those on next. But I just thought I'd mention that because it's a relevant point. On some models I've seen the Falcon where it's been weathered and people have done this kind of streaking effect, but on the bottom they've done it the same way. So if you imagine if that was the bottom part of the hull, the streaks are going the wrong way. Those streaks would be brought down with gravity or rain whilst the ship is on a surface of a planet. Obviously there's no weathering in space because there's no atmosphere, there's no friction. It's a vacuum, so any dirt on the hull would just stay on the hull. There's nothing to blow it off or along in any direction. But when it's in atmospheric flight, you get some of the dust being swept back, like I did a little bit here, as it goes that way. But when it's stationary, it is basically at the whim of gravity. So don't forget, if you're building this and you're going to weather it like I have, don't forget that on the underside of the hull, this is our first piece of plating for the underside, the weathering goes the other way.